slides back, you talked about wearable technology. What did you mean by that?
Okay, that's a great question. Wearable technology from your watch, the Apple watches and your Fitbits, things like that. Google glasses, those are all wearable technology. Now, Google glasses are used in surgery. Google glasses are used by surgeons in surgery to actually go in and see an image and help guide them in surgery. All of that data going back and forth, that content is structured in a way that it delivers that knowledge to that individual in a way that can be used. For instance, some Fitbits have that heart monitor on them. Also have the capability to call emergency if your heart rate goes into a dangerous area. The Fitbit is also tied to a GPS. The GPS knows where you are. It contacts 911. The emergency, what I talked about before, emergency people come to where you are because they know by the Fitbit, and they have the data coming to them based upon that situation, and they can immediately tap into their knowledge to be able to address that person's situation. That's where the wearable technology is coming in. I could have also indicated smart cities or smart homes. So it's that type of environment where knowledge and the structure of knowledge is playing a key role in evolving that paradigm. So that was a great question.
That's another part of what we've been calling in class, instead of the Internet of Things, we call it the Internet of Everything.
Right, exactly.
Yes, sir. So over the last few days, I've been sitting here trying to decide or figure out how I'm going to implement knowledge management in my organization, which happens to be a military organization. And the question in the back of my mind has been, well, is it going to be any different from it would be in any other organization? And then I saw that you had a chapter in your book about military knowledge management. So I guess my question is, how is that either different, or what method would you use to apply it differently in a military organization than you would in a civilian or commercial organization?
So, some of the methods are not different. It's just the drive for it. I've worked with Wright Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton. I worked at Fort Eustis in Virginia during the transition to Scott Air Force Base in Illinois. And they had a saying, what have you done for the warfighter today? Right? So our mission was to make sure that warfighter in theater had the knowledge they needed to engage the enemy. For us, that was a life or death situation. So that's the big difference. You're not usually going to a Walmart and doing their knowledge management application and strategy thinking somebody's going to really get seriously hurt. In the military, you have to think about, I'm delivering knowledge to that person in that chain. At the end of the day, it's going to service that man or woman in the front lines engaged in battle. That's what we look at. It's the purpose behind it that makes you say, hey, let me do what I need to do to make sure that works. And so you have a different commitment. When I said before about when the general said, hey, what Tony says, when Tony speaks for me, that carried a lot of weight. You know, it's the same challenges finding that brief for the general, delivering that content to the command in the right way, in the right context, making sure that knowledge is accessible. They have a lot of the same things. Knowledge repositories. You know, in the military, SharePoint is huge. So that you can build the SharePoint repositories in structured the right way so they can get to that knowledge or that content in a specific way, same way all the time, and find what they need. So it's some of the same aspects, but the purpose is a little different. And so you can gain a lot. And with the military, it's very structured. They have an overall CAM for entire military. Then they have CAM strategy for the Air Force, the Army, right? Marines. Then they have that strategy has to align, or where from all the way down to the battalion level aligns with with the strategy from that particular branch of the force, which aligns to the overall military. So it's very aligned, right? And so that's the way organizations struggle with that. There's so many times where it's the tail wagging the dog. You have a KM strategy in one area, and everybody else trying to figure out, okay, what is this KM thing you're talking about? So the Army is military is very structured. So we can, in private industry, we can learn a lot from the military because it's very structured, very aligned, highly communicated, and they attack it with a purpose. So that's the big difference I found. Any other questions?
Watson and cognitive computing separate. Are they not related?
Oh no, I was saying that. I could have added IBM Watson under the cognitive computing and big data as well. They do cognitive computing. But I'm gonna tell you guys a little secret. Working with Watson, IBM Watson, and then listen to those commercials. There's a little gap there between what is reality and then what they portray. They're trying to get to that. They have things that are leading them there. The one thing about the IBM Watson piece is that there's a whole IBM Watson ecosystem. It's not just IBM, but they've partnered with companies that are contributing to that ecosystem. Now, what IBM has done great is there's several IBM Watson APIs. There's one called a question and answer API that you can plug into, for instance, a self-help system. You can type in natural language processing, right? So you can type in your question, that Watson API interprets your question, look at the available data, answer that question based upon not only what you wrote, but the intent of what you wrote to bring back the answer. So they're doing a lot behind the scenes in cognitive computing. And that is leading to a lot of artificial intelligence applications too. So it's you're right. They are actually they're doing quite a few good things in that. But it's a little ways from where the commercial is telling you. But it's a goal that they have. Any other questions, comments?
The theme of cultural obstacles or cultural change came up a couple of times in your presentation as places where initiatives tend to fail. And I'd like to know if you have seen particular strategies for initiating the necessary cultural changes that have tended to be the most successful.
Okay, good question. I know one of the things Doug has always preached, and I've been preaching this for years, is that you can't have knowledge management without change management, right? So there are cultural changes that have to come. Remember I said earlier about the executives have to support it, and it's hard. And so with that constant support, knowing that if you don't do this, there will be ramifications. Some of the activities I've seen is that knowledge sharing and mentoring has been included in your performance reviews, right? So you just can't contribute junk, but it's got to be something that's going to be that's vetted, that's relevant, and that's a plus. It's not something, okay, check the box, you did it today. It's actual a plus that will determine the type of bonus you get. So it's weaved into the fabric of your day-to-day work. So those type of activities help shift that culture. A lot of times some people just say, I'm not going to do this, because the one comment that I get all the time is that I'm not going to share what I know. That's my job security. But what you know may become obsolete. And sharing what you know, you don't lose it. If I share with you what I know, I don't lose what I know. If that was the case, we'd be real messed up. Nobody would share anything. So it's preaching that, hey, you enrich your knowledge sharing it. It's job security to share it. When you don't share it, there's a possibility that you become obsolete. When you become obsolete, you become expendable rather. And that you're gone. So it's those type of logical conversations you have to have. But it is hard because people get to work in a certain way, interact in a certain way. They don't want to change. That's why Doug has preached for years. You got to have change management with knowledge management. And so, especially if you're doing it for the first time, and it'd be good to get your change management folks involved. And that comes with the communication piece. And you might communicate once a week. You may do the forums, may do the lunch and learns. I did forums, lunch and learns. The knowledge cafes are really cool and fun. Get people involved. Get people involved will get them to change their minds, get them more aligned with what you want to do. And you have to appease to their sense of, we need your knowledge in order for this to be successful. This be successful because of you. And get them to have ownership of the KM opportunity. Those other subtle things. We even did rewards. It's very easy. So now, folks will, I know I respond well to this, even when you recognize by your peers or recognized by the organization, even if it's just a little certificate, a little piece of paper, it means something. We've had Contributor of the Week, a little certificate. They may frame it and put it on their cubicle. That's announced on the news hub. And it get people excited. Oh, I want to be Contributor of the Week. And they try to find out how to get involved. So it's those little things. It don't cost a lot of money. People think, oh, we got to do this. No, it's those little things. Just to know that you appreciate it. Because at the end of the day, we want to be valued for what we do. Appreciate it for what we do. And the KM is a good opportunity to even get, I've been involved with places where, I'll tell you a little story. There's a gentleman that Doug knows very well, Jay Leibowitz, one of the top KM strategists in the country. This is kind of a funny story because my wife works for a company called Sealed Air. You taping this? But Sealed Air. Sealed Air has a knowledge management issue. They wanted to bring in somebody to help them do their knowledge management strategy. So my wife was saying, hey, my husband does this. And they was like, oh, well, whatever, So they ended up bringing in Jay Leibowitz, who I know. Jay Leibowitz told them to contact me. So I'm saying, because I'm like, it was funny because I was at the KM conference and we were talking about this. I said, oh, my wife works for that company. He said, really? Okay. Next day, I get back, I get a call from Jay Leibowitz and say, hey, I told him about you, whatever. And I got an email from their people saying that, oh yeah, we understand that you know Jay and blah, blah, blah. We may engage you at some appropriate time. Of course, that never happened. But the thing is, you never know how the companies are going to work, or who's involved. This community of KM practitioners is very small. So that's just a sort of a lesson out there. You never know the opportunity that's going to happen and who you're going to work with, because Doug has worldwide reach. He's talked to a lot of companies, a lot of individuals, and I'm sure that you guys have issues or something comes up. This would be a good person to plug into, things like that. So, just a little side note. But it's interesting because knowledge management has evolved to a point where it's in a lot of different technologies, a lot of different approaches or methodologies. And you say, well, really? How does knowledge play a key role there? It's just the evolution of the science, evolution of the discipline. Because KM actually has been around, knowledge has been around since the Stone Age, when he was drawing stuff on the cave so people understand what they're doing, and Egyptian hieroglyphics, on the pyramids, there's knowledge being exchanged. That's that. But to grab it and socialize it and move it around and control it, that's what we're bringing it to now. And companies are really realizing that they want to take what we know individually and make it part of the corporate knowledge base. So when you leave, they say goodbye, but we got what you know. But you don't lose it. You still bring it, take it with you, but they also have it so they can evolve it for the next person. I'll give you guys another situation where I was in working with Walmart. Walmart has this policy every vendor they work for has to do a knowledge transfer. So I've worked with putting a knowledge transfer plan together and a strategy around it, and even an application to the knowledge repository to keep that information. Their vendor has to detail everything they did, how they did it, the whole nine. Because every year their contract comes up. And so if a new company comes in and low bids them, you know what? They take the knowledge from that previous vendor, give it to the new one. So the other vendor is out, new vendor is in. Now that new vendor, if they don't agree to the price, same cycle. Walmart feels that, hey, they're expendable, but their knowledge isn't. So it's that continuous cycle, capturing that knowledge, you give it to the next person, capture and give it to the next person. So their whole strategy is around capturing knowledge and retaining it for the company. You know, you run into different situations at different organizations, and it depends on your strategy, right? What type of initiatives that your company needs to enact that is knowledge-centric or knowledge management-centric. And so those are things that what Doug talked about, the squirrels, those are little things that can add value and tell the organization, oh, knowledge management could do X. It's those little things. I know Doug talked about years ago, it's a low budget KM. I don't know if you guys talked about that yet. And you'd be amazed what you can do for next to nothing. But it's hey, that's KM. Oh, really? Oh, that KM stuff is great. So you want them to say, oh, then maybe, you know, there'd be a big opportunity. Now, I'm doing some work currently with State Farm, and I've helped them implement 4 different KM systems. These are, I would call, started out like not squirrels, but medium-sized bulls. What's a young bull? A calf? Was like a young bull, right? But they have evolved into these huge things, and so we're trying to get our arms around them now because they like a life of their own. But it has spawned. It was so successful, it spawned the little squirrels. Oh, this KM is great. Let's do this, and everybody's excited. So it can have a very positive effect. And State Farm was really good about them with these applications and KM. They have a whole communication system. Put out the word, do the lunch and learns, do the focus groups, have folks look at the system. Just, hey, you want a chance to play with the system, test it. Here, you sign up. People test the system. You know, they feel involved. So.
We've talked much about writing stories. Do you have any customers, clients that have gotten into that storytelling part of the game to get the communication out?
Yeah. When we talk about storytelling, they turn it into scenarios. Same thing. I tell them, but the thing is having a compelling story. Always start as, let's have a compelling story. Let's develop some scenarios. It was funny. We had an actual situation. Someone put on a skit that acted out the situation for the KM application. I mean, it can go in a lot of different directions. And if you guys imagine, you know, State Farm, you probably haven't noticed State Farm is kind of like everywhere. NFL, NBA, all these, everybody turns to commercial. You know, Aaron Rodgers, you know, everybody. Saturday Night Live, State Farm. Imagine, you know, they got all this stuff at their disposal. So they're pretty creative with their communication and people that are involved. So they really get creative on getting the word out. And it makes for a fun environment and an interesting twist. They also have an internal communication that goes out, very popular, gets out to the agents, gets out to all the employees. So they have a communication engine that gets the word out. It gets people involved and excited. They say, oh, how can I work on a project like that? How can I get involved in this knowledge management stuff? You know, oh, we need some knowledge management. You know, sometimes they don't know what it is. Oh, we need some. Because they see how cool the end product is. So that's the other piece. Storytelling is great.
We spent a lot of the morning talking about information architecture, and you used very curious words before that. User, can you expound upon
Yes, in information architecture, part of the focus is understanding what people call certain things, labeling, right? And how content or knowledge is structured. And the only way you understand that is you work with the subject matter experts. You work with users of the application that is going to be deployed. And so you want to have things that resonate with them. If you call something a certain thing, you want it to resonate with who's using the system. Because I can tell if an IT person, a technical person, has designed an application with the labels on the tabs and the drop downs and stuff, because there's technical stuff and there's not really business related things that people really latch onto. They're like, what is that? Why do we have this over here? And the other thing is, if you have good user experience architects, the folks that really understand and work with the users to say, how do you want to use this application? A lot of times it's based on their work process. I do this first, I do this second, I do this and this. And then they lay it out in a way that's more intuitive, right? And it's more user friendly. And that's why you want to get the users involved and understand that. You want to understand what they call certain things, how things are structured, the hierarchical relationships between things, how you want to lay that out on a screen or several screens. How do you work? What's your process of doing what you do? So you can't know that unless you work with the users, work with the subject matter experts to get that out of them. And then you can structure the knowledge in a certain way and the application a certain way. How do you do that? Man, that's a fantastic question. You do it a piece at a time. I've done this a few times. You have organizations that have several business areas. It depends on the scope of the application. Say the application involving several, like 2 or 3 business areas, maybe 4 or 5. You talk to each business area. Understand how their content works. Understand what they call certain things. And then you talk to all of them, and then you look at it from holistically and say, how does this all fit? What are the commonalities? And then you kind of range it from the commonalities and then split them off from there. Because the businesses have to understand that you can develop more than one taxonomy. You can all have similar taxonomy for the first couple of levels, but then each business area may have branch off into their own. Operations may do something else, retail may do something else, commercial may do something like that, but they all start at this 1 or 2 levels. And then they can go on to their own specific thing. So it's very business specific. However, if you look at from a whole enterprise perspective, you need to see how the pieces connect. Because you don't want this guy over here having something so way off from this guy that you can never bring them together. And what knowledge management does is knock down silos. Because too many times, if you have silo over here, everybody has their own little thing, little budget, never talk to anybody. And I find a lot of companies that one business over here buy this tool to do one thing, another business over here buy a tool to do the same thing the other guy did, but it's a different tool. But if you bring them together and to the look and feel and the application and labeling, they can see something that, oh, I'm not as different as I thought I was. Everybody says, oh, I'm unique. You may be to a certain degree, but you want to look at it from an enterprise as well as specific business too. So that's a great question, and that's a challenge, because sometimes that knowledge will transition to another area that may need the same thing, but call it a little differently. But do you have to call it different? It does the same thing. Then they get together and say, oh, okay. Because one thing I find is that what I preach is aren't you all working for the same company? You know, isn't it the same company here? Or do you have your little side business going on and you just want to, link it up here? And then they say, oh yeah, we do work for the same company. And so you got to sometimes just kind of bring everybody kind of back to earth, so to speak. So,
are there any developing technologies or procedures or concepts within knowledge management that you see are going to be the next big thing that we should be aware of in the next couple of years?
It has to be the cognitive computing space. The one thing that you heard that Apple did, they release Apple's iPhone 7. It's not the iPhone that was really the important piece. It's that earpiece that they released. That earpiece is going to allow you to talk to your appliances in a fully connected smart home. Now, knowledge management is going to play a key role in what's get passed. Like Doug just said, it's going to be like not the Internet of Things, Internet of Everything. What's the knowledge thread that gets passed? You're going to be able to say, lights off. You got to be able to interpret that, turn off the light, and you put that timers. You got all these other things that you can command from your voice. So that cognitive computing piece and natural language processing is going to be a key enabler for knowledge management to play a role. And besides that, see, a lot of people miss that Apple piece. It's that ear. I mean, it's not even real. It's the thing that hangs off your ear like an earring or something, but they put it in your ear. But it's that they're able to connect that to other devices. So that's going to be a key piece to see where that goes. And the other thing is the cognitive aspect of a lot of things that are going on with IBM Watson and other players. The other piece that you guys watch out for this are the cars, self-driving cars. Now we already got some of those pieces, like the cruise control and that automatically, like my car will automatically slow down. If I set it for a certain speed and the car goes in front of me, my car automatically slow down. We got self-parking cars, all those little things, all within the vehicle are going to need. You're the centerpiece, right? It's interpreting that knowledge, interpreting that command from what you do in your car, able to drive that car. Because what we're I would say we in the industry are promoting or trying to push is not to remove the driver, remove the person from this equation, but have that person incorporated into this. Because I don't ever want to see, the computers take over. You still need that human element. But see, that's where it's going. Little subtle changes are happening. But that's where it's going.
We've all talked extensively about all of the ways in which knowledge management is not about particular IT systems. So starting with that in mind, are there tools that you have seen that maybe lend themselves more to knowledge management best practices, or come with some of that built in that organizations have tended to be more successful with?
Yeah. There's anything a lot of tools in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. I can speak to a couple of them. Oracle KM. Oracle KM has a product that was Inquirer. They bought Inquirer. Now it's part of Oracle KM. They have a specific tool that works extremely well for knowledge for contact centers. That is a niche. That is a growing opportunity. So those applications and their infrastructure works fantastic for that. Oracle KM is used in Apple, and when Apple does their ordering and things of that nature, and they're interacting with the customers, its backbone is Oracle KM. So those got some various. eGain is another product very specific for the customer service area. Where the gap is, I'm going to switch it around. Where the gap is that capturing that internal knowledge. There's no holistic tool with best practices for capturing internal knowledge. Now, you can use SharePoint for just about anything. SharePoint to me is a development environment. You can develop things in SharePoint that can allow you to capture that knowledge from an individual. But it's not enough of those products coming off the shelf like that. They more hit a certain niche. What is happening is that the lines between knowledge management and CRM, customer relationship management, are blurring. So you got tools like Salesforce integrating with tools like an Oracle KM. Or you have Salesforce integrating with a SharePoint knowledge piece. Salesforce also has their own little knowledge module. It's not that big a deal, But so there's niches where companies have products for that niche that bring in those best practices.
Expert Locator is an old tool that's been around for a while, right?
Yep.
Do you see any evolution to that?
That's a good question. Only thing I know is Citrion and some of the homegrown applications that take advantage of your different people's profiles. the ideal of expertise locator, like you said, is not new, but it's growing in its use. I'm not sure of what products are out there that you take that concept into play, but that is something they look at within the legal community in particular.
The reason I ask is that most expert locators that I've looked at are all manual. I mean, somebody tags their expertise and that's how you locate them. There's nothing that does, something that ties into all this cognitive computing, big data.
Yeah, that would be good. I mean, matter of fact, it may be something to look into. You could be onto something, right? So if you have, you're right, it's a lot of manual work, but once you build it, it's great. But if you're looking for cognitive computing, natural language processing, you automatically take care of that and do some automatic updating and things like that. I don't know. I have to find out. I'm not sure of what products are out there to do that.
Usually when we talk about expert locator, which we haven't really gotten to yet, I talk about two features that are unique to internal expert locators. That wouldn't be the same thing as, let's say, Facebook if you want to find somebody. And one is the ability to link that expert locator to actual projects that you have done within the company. So if I'm looking for somebody with expertise, I not only have their bio, but I can also go look at the projects they've worked on if I want to get a real sense for it. That's one part. If your need for an expert locator is to try to find somebody to work on a job for you, let's say you're a consulting firm and you're looking for somebody that can take down 50% billable time over the next month or two, you also probably need to be connected to their personal calendar. So if somebody is booked for the next 2 months and I need somebody 50% and their calendar says they're booked for the next 2 months, no sense even wasting any time looking at their profile. So calendarization associated with expert locator, and then the really granular looking at the actual projects they've worked on over the last couple of years, which would be housed in the repository, would be two features that are probably pretty powerful, depending on what you need for an expert locator.
Great point.
I have one other question. We spent much time on Monday talking about making the case for KM. Things like what Cotter says about a sense of urgency and things such as that. And so your chapter 2, the case for KM, implies some good stuff in it. What's the key thing in that chapter that might add to something that we've talked about in class?
Well, the one thing that is a common thread is getting something that attracts the senior leadership, a pain point that attracts the senior leadership, and solving that with KM. And the thing is, you have to articulate that case in a certain way, with ROI and some other things too. But that is the number one takeaway, is to get something that's a pain point for those executives.
Very first question about how they can drink the Kool-Aid.
Oh yeah, you gotta hit them where it hurts. That money, the revenue. If you can tie everything back to the bottom line revenue, you got something.
And I work for a military organization, so you just have to be approached a certain way. How do we?
Right. It's the thing. What I found is if I can address a pain point, an issue, a major concern that hasn't been addressed, but in a way that can leverage KM and present that, I have their attention. But then I walked through the whole process of developing a case. All the pieces that you have to put together for that. That gets their attention. Then they say, "Well, go do it." Right? Show me how you need to get it done. Then you kind of put the framework around it. So but it comes with that first identifying that pain point. So that's key. Questions, concerns?
Okay, I think it's about lunchtime. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome.